English Shorthand Dictation. Ready? Start. The Learned Council has, while extensively relying on the Constituent Assembly debates, preamble and Article 38 of the Constitution, which enjoins the state to secure and protect a social order in which justice, social, economic and political shall inform the institutions of the national life, stressed that it was to ensure this social justice and the ethos of the Constitution that especially provisions were envisioned under Article 15(4) and reservations in employment were provided under Article 16(4). He argued that it was due to certain old practices that a section of population was marginalized and was deprived of material resources and educational opportunities. The people in the lowest level of social hierarchy were ostracized and stigmatized from public life and were deprived of basic liberties and equality. It was to address these historical inequalities that, as a vehicle of positive discrimination, the social oppressed sections were provided reservations and special provisions so as to give them a voice in administration, access to resources such as education and public employment. Therefore, the idea of ensuring social equality and justice was a congenital feature of the Constitution, shaping its basic structure. The Learned Counsel has argued that this basic structure has been violated by the amendment in question, which seeks to empower the privileged sections of society who are neither socially and educationally backward nor inadequately represented. He also submitted that the amendment in question has introduced those sections of people as economically weaker who were never subjected to any discrimination, whether historically or otherwise, and were not backward socially and educationally. The Learned Counsel quoted Dr. B.R. Ambedkar from the Constituent Assembly debates to support his contention that reservation should not be used by the forward class as a self-perpetuating mechanism depriving the disadvantaged. The equation of the victims of social discrimination with those responsible for their victimization for the purpose of conferring benefits was a contortion of the Constitution and no less than playing a fraud on it. He relied on decisions of this court in T. Devadasan versus Union of India and State of Kerala and Indra Sahani and others versus Union of India to submit that this court has discerned reservations and special provisions as an effective affirmative action to mitigate inequalities and ensure social justice and equality of opportunity. The Learned Counsel has further relied on the decision of this court in M. R. Balaji and others. The Learned Counsel has further submitted that this clause in Articles 15(6) and 16(6), while granting reservation to already privileged and adequately represented class of citizens, has vetoed the prerequisite of being socially and educationally backward or inadequately represented, which was the kernel to philosophy of reservation. The Constitution puts forth social and educational backwardness and not social or educational backwardness as a criterion to determine positive discrimination in favor of a class. This foundation of social justice for historically marginalized and disadvantaged people is completely obliterated by the amendment in question, which removes that criterion. He argued that backward class included those classes from the forward class that were socially and educationally backward, hence making them eligible for benefits of reservation. He exemplified this by stating that there were numerous communities traditionally belonging to the so-called forward class in several states and several of any religion but are recognized as OBC on the ground that they are socially and educationally backward. On the point of exclusion of SCs, STs, and OBCs, the Learned Council has argued that the concept of fraternity as envisaged in the Constitution informs Articles 15 and 17, giving shape to equality while prohibiting discrimination and discriminatory practices prevalent in our society. Inclusion of forward class and exclusion of disadvantaged class from the protection and benefit of reservation violate the basic structure of the Constitution. Learned Counsel has relied on the decision of this court in Prithviraj Chauhan versus Union of India to highlight the place and role of fraternity in the scheme of polity and society. Further, he has stated that such exclusion of SCs, STs, and OBCs was primarily based on caste because it is indeed undisputed that a large chunk of population so excluded are also economically backward along with being socially and educationally backward. Hence, he would submit that the basic principle of equality forming the basic structure of the Constitution stands abrogated by excluding those who are socially and educationally backward and also are part of systematic poverty, labor under total poverty. The Learned Council has yet further argued that the purpose of positive discrimination was to put an end to monopoly of certain classes and create an exclusive society so as to ensure equality of opportunity to the marginalized sections. However, the amendment in question creates a perpetual monopoly by providing reservation to that section is not precise and is based on their individual traits more so when these classes have been enjoying and are still enjoying control over resources. Stop.